the game of baseball, America's pastime. We have something special on our hands here, folks. Not just a good show, but a good show with support. As much as I have so much love for a few other shows on at the moment like Mao Mao, Elliot from Earth, and earlier this year and last year with Nickelodeon's new lineup, it's always so painful to support these shows and want to see more, only for it to crash and be hidden somewhere after the first season. What's a better way to talk about how great Molly McGee has been by lining it up with one of my favorite shows, Fairly Oddparents, that also covered the topic of baseball, foul ball. Also plug in my Discord. So here we have a horrible losing team, the Lemmings, in which Molly, being the naturally optimistic do-gooder that Disney loves so much, hypes up her team with minimal improvement. We do get something that's gonna come back later that they very subtly cover within this first minute. You see Scratch filling out his scare report saying that he scared a William Palmer. The significance of that isn't gonna come up until later, so hold that thought for now.
All Libby and the Lemmings need to succeed is a little encouragement, and nobody encourages harder than me.
Oh, that is true.
And once the Lemmings start winning, that'll enhappify our little town of Bright.
I can say for sure that Scratch has gotten 200% better since the first episode, and I would say the dynamic between the two is pretty much perfect within the small amount of episodes out right now. I can see this going for 3 or 4 seasons and having that strong connected dynamic that would rival the ones not just on Disney, but animation out right now. They avoided having Scratch be miserable in the sunlight of the main character's optimism, which would have made the show insufferable. They also avoided having Molly be annoying with their optimism because she's a kid, which also makes me enjoy her as a character as well. Together, their dialogue is very casual, along the lines of the small aspects of what I enjoyed about Ollie's pack. Probably the only thing I enjoyed. Not only that, but it sets up Molly to be the contrast to a moral deprived team with a non-existent coach.
That ball's going right to Libby. You got it, girl!
One thing I really do enjoy about this episode, especially when compared to the first one, is that it actually doesn't have to cover so many bases, pun not intended. It's very freeform, and you can tell because it gives a lot of time for small talk, which doesn't go unappreciated, especially with me, because anytime we get to see the contrast of Scratch's defeatist and snarky nature against Molly's die-hard, in-your-face happiness and hope, it's a good part of the episode. Libby, the girl who got hit in the head with the baseball, is very upfront with the fact that not only does she absolutely suck at baseball, but the entire team is bad. And while she is appreciative of Molly's support, it's not gonna change that. Well, when you tell a take-on-the-world do-gooder like Molly not to do something, well, obviously she's gonna have to do it, even if she doesn't want to. She even says that here.
Have you ever even played softball?
Me play softball? Is that what you're asking? Have I ever played it?
Yeah.
No. Have I wanted to play it? Also no. But, am I gonna play it? Heck to the yes! Oh.
Slapstick humor is undefeated still, and will go on strong into the years to come. We have established that Molly isn't so good and isn't really that interested in softball. We've also established that the Lemmings aren't that good in the first place, so she's right at home. So already, this is setting up Molly for disaster. However, just to cement the fact that Molly is not going to be victorious in this bout, at least for now, is the rival team, including one Miss Tammy Myers, whose character design just screams rival team captain. They really nailed it. After Molly unsuccessfully hypes up her team to give it 110%, she unsuccessfully pitches the first ball, which makes the rival team die of laughter given how much outward confidence she has on the mound. Then something really interesting happens here, where Scratch is compelled to help, not out of the kindness of his heart, but that he wants to be the only one who makes fun of Molly. And it isn't fun when other people make fun of Molly. It's a very early 2000s kind of friendship, where they aren't entirely open about the way that they feel about each other, which is a breath of fresh air, honestly. So not only does he possess the ball Molly is about to throw to make Tammy eat her words, but also kill any chance of her swinging the ball at all in a very embarrassing way.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Haha, I see you tried the old get the fly swatter and try to catch the fly trick. It never works. The fly is always one step ahead of you. Well, we'll see how Molly reacts to the truth about how she's throwing fastballs after we see how foul ball starts. Like with the Unnatural, there is a team here, the Dimsdale Losers. Given that this is a season 2 episode of Fairly Oddparents, we're still seeing the development of Timmy as a character who is a lot more grounded and humbled, at least compared to the post-hiatus Fairly Oddparents. And even a concept like a Little League being included within an episode is so refreshing, because if you have magic fairies, you can really apply them anywhere you like. They'd face off against a lot of wacky teams within this episode, and I like the aspect of that. Although in the Unnatural, you see that they're facing off against human teams, both approaches work. It just depends on the mood you're going for, and I'm all for being in the mood to be wacky. Foul Bald is a Chester-centric episode, and in fact, Chester and Libby share a lot of the same qualities within their respective episodes in this versus. They both suck. However, where it was more of a passing quality of Libby, it is a primary quality of Chester McBadbat, of which you can see that he's living his legacy at the very least. They also show that Timmy is decent at baseball, but nothing too special.
Oh no, it's Chester, the worst player on the team. That's how he got the nickname Chester, the worst player on the team.
So only now you want to take out your umbrella? Definitely couldn't have avoided a strawberry cone to the dome if you had that up earlier. While the Ghost and Molly McGee showed that the other team was bad in a natural way, I enjoyed how cartoonish and over the top Chester's lack of skill is shown to be. They build this up with the other team doing anything but looking focused on baseball. And whether that's because they're aware of Chester's all-time horrible skill at baseball, or that it's the Dimsdale losers so you don't really have to give it 100%, I love the tiny details that show that these delinquents are actually quite talented. Makes you wonder what happened to them and how they're still 10. Anywho, to not worry about that too much, Chester not only misses his swing, but his brace is cut into the ball, or really the other way around, and create enough equal pieces that his own swing meant that the entire game is done. It's preposterous, honestly, but I like the direction that they go here, because we not only see his best friend Timmy's perspective, but later on we get more development from his team with his father and how he feels about his legacy within baseball.
Come on, dude. It's just a game.
Yeah, well, tell that to my dad.
Bucky McBadbat is your dad? He was the worst baseball player ever.
That's why I have to become a big baseball star, to redeem my family name.
So is this like a coupon, or does his name magically change for how good that he becomes? I'm so ready for Chester McDecent back. Fairly OddParents is quite notorious for not building up that much stuff, given that it's a comedic and episodic show, and being on Nickelodeon, a place that doesn't really put a lot of priority on story-heavy shows as much as other networks. However, one thing that this episode pushes forward is Chester's relationship with his dad, Bucky McBadbat. From what we know, he played professionally, and he was so bad that not only is he deemed the worst baseball player ever, but that's why he hides his face under a bag. There's also a tradition of people blowing up his mailbox. It also makes sense as to where they live, as it's quite clear that he did not become a success off of baseball. Even though Fairly OddParents wouldn't have really given much emphasis to the emotional aspect of the situation, I do understand that Chester wants to at least make his father proud, which is not that common to see in Fairly OddParents episodes. Off the top of my head, I think about episodes like Superbike, which was a very father-centric episode with Timmy's father and Timmy somewhat bonding, but episodes like that can be pretty sparse, and would get even more sparse as time goes on, and Timmy's father would become whatever is below a full-blown idiot.
Okay, we're playing 3-year-olds today, so we might have a chance. Are you ready? Are you in the zone?
Most of you may think he was screaming out of anxiety of playing baseball, but oh no, he was screaming because the kids in the dugout behind Timmy disappeared and no one besides him noticed. Don't worry, Chester, I noticed, and it creeps me out as well. Chester having a mental breakdown that some of his friends disappeared into thin air and has a hard time focusing on making swings that don't leave me disappointed in humanity. It is important to note, and we'll see it a lot in the middle part of the episode, that a lot of the feelings that Chester has relates specifically to his dad, and they're not really self-serving that much. We actually see a few episodes within the series where Chester proves to be the most selfless of the trio between him, Timmy, and AJ, and I would love to get around to those episodes if you guys are interested. I know I haven't spoken that much about Cosmo and Wanda, and they do have their tiny moments within the first part of this episode, particularly Cosmo being funny still. Something that I should add that I cherish a lot because he would go on to become loud and painfully dull. However, before the last pitch, Timmy makes a wish to make his friend, in this case Chester, become the best baseball player ever.
I wish my friend was the best baseball player ever.
The city of Dimsdale are not only happy with him, but Timmy calls him the best baseball player ever. Now, while committing an act of international terrorism is grounds for baseball legacy, it should be noted that they played against 3-year-olds, so this bar must be set really low. Anywho, we'll get to see how Chester reacts to this newfound skill as we get back to the Ghost and Molly McGee. Getting back over to the unnatural, we get the song of the episode, If You Believe, via a montage of Molly doing some pretty impossible plays, impressing her team and winning despite the odds of them winning normally being pretty much zero. I love how wacky they are, with Molly flinging her body and not wondering why she doesn't have that much control over it. The thing with optimistic characters is they can be quite delusional, and that usually can be a negative thing, but I think it works here because while in montage form, you don't really get to see her side of things, as she's enjoying the ride and making her team and town happy with their plays. So of course, not only did the Lemmings win, but Scratch comes out that he cheated. What a monster! He also explains what I said earlier about him wanting to be the only person who brings Molly's spirits down. Of course, optimistic do-gooder character doesn't want to cheat, but do this fairly. And this is where Scratch goes from a good character to an absolutely fantastic character.
Molly, you said it yourself. Everybody deserves a chance to succeed. Well, today, the Lemmings tasted victory.
I know it's technically wrong to cheat. Wrong feels kind of right.
You just won yourself a hug. Bring it over here.
He understands how to speak Molly's language, which was that variety I was looking for in the first episode, which is ironic because according to Bill Motz, co-creator of the show, this was the pilot, so this is kind of the first episode, so it's kind of weird, but also understandable given what the first episode was trying to do, that they couldn't bring this Scratch to the forefront, because I do like the twist. I found Molly struggling with outsmarting Scratch's logic to be a great catalyst for continuing to cheat. In fact, seeing Molly willingly accept cheating doesn't diminish my perception of her being an optimistic do-gooder tween. The episode makes it super clear that she doesn't feel the best doing it, but she wants to make everyone believe in themselves, which may lead into her not needing to cheat later on. She never got on a pedestal and preached that she doesn't need to cheat and cheaters are wrong and you always must do good, unlike some other shows on Disney. And I think it's just more palpable and relatable to not have the moral shoved down by the main character to make them look morally right. They go through the montage of cheating in which they subtly change the song to mention that they are cheating, something that sounds off-putting but in a good way. And finally, they are at the championships against the conventional rival team. Yes, the Skylarks. I also like during the montage of cheating that there are some plays in which Scratch stops trying to make them seem natural. While Molly is giving a speech about trying your best, Libby red pills her.
Molly, we're winners because of you. The rest of us, we're still terrible. It doesn't matter because we've got you to mask the scent of our incredible stinkiness. You are our team deodorant!
Molly being struck in the face with realism, stating the facts that they are self-aware of who's leading the team, and not claiming credit for any of the victories is what takes the hop out of her step. Libby being a part of the team that was winning all of those games didn't help Libby, it helped Molly because Molly is the one that's doing the work, and Libby and the team know that. Well, everyone except maybe Andrea, who was only
Here just because I like the uniforms.
I think what hurts Molly the most here is that they're okay with this fact, and that to me is a lot more endearing for her than doing something that's just right because it's right. This to me is selfless, as she knows that if she matches the energy of her team, the victory they'll have will be a lie, and that will live on her conscience because she wants the team to believe in themselves. That's why it's a lot easier to understand where Molly comes from in her optimism, because they built her character in an easy to understand way that doesn't revolve around her having to be right all the time, but around her being Molly all the time. And that includes the moments where she doesn't know, which I think is important for some people watching to really get. Molly goes through with it, weighing heavy on her conscience still, but there's a tiny hiccup in her plan.
Uh-oh. Oh, hold up! There goes Council summoning me, and I'll be back as soon as I can!
On page 3, it says you scared Billy Palmer.
But then, on page 5, it says you terrified a William Palmer.
Are Billy and William the same person?
I don't know, maybe?
They are.
Which means you are one scare short for the month, Scratch.
Before we see how Scratch and Molly get out of their troubles, let's continue foul-balled. Getting back to the Fairly OddParents, you would imagine that now that Chester is perfect, life is all well, and there's nothing really to worry about. And then the opposite happens.
Winning run is on first. All I have to do is hit him in, and we'll win the...
Chester's stolen second!
Timmy is not too hot on the idea of Chester being so great that he can basically win the game single-handedly. It turns him into this very arrogant, ball-hungry, or I guess base-hungry, selfish player that only thinks about winning at the expense of anyone else trying. Now, on one hand, they're called the Dimsdale losers, so Chester having a disproportionate amount of time to make plays is probably for the betterment of the team. However, Timmy does strike a fair point about it not being fun when you're on a team and you contribute absolutely nothing to it. Well, besides the wish, but that doesn't really count. And not only is the team doing better without you, but no one even gives you any respect for being a part of it, because you never get the opportunity to make the big play. It causes a rift between Timmy and Chester, naturally, of which we're only seeing the tension starting. Timmy vents his feelings to Cosmo and Wanda, to which Cosmo says it can't possibly get worse, and once again, until the opposite happens.
Dude, be my pack mule and carry my stuff?
Well, at least I'll get to touch the equipment.
That's the spirit. Feeding time.
It's super important to note what I said earlier about Chester having a lot of sad feelings when it comes to his relationship with his dad in baseball, and how he was very humble and selfless for wanting to bring a better name to the name McBadbat. It's not nullified here. While it is undeniable to say that Chester is treating Timmy differently, some, like Timmy, would even go as far as to say inconsiderate, he accomplished his goal. It just came with the nasty side effect of him not letting anyone else get to enjoy the game because his goal of making his father proud supersedes any other friendship that he has. To which I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that he's done this, but I am saying I can 100% believe the kid who was absolutely trashed by the city for being bad wants to cherish the limelight of finally being accepted, and that's why I really dig this episode. Not only that, but later on we'd go on to see Timmy get upset and nearly unwish the wish, only to see Chester signing autographs with his father beside him.
I don't know how you magically got good at baseball, but I've never been more proud of you. Will you sign your old man's bag? Yeah! I feel ashamed lifting!
I would have given this episode 1 billion stars if Chester never came back down to the ground. However, Timmy, someone whose heart is not made out of stone, decides to pull back on the idea of removing the happiness and wholesomeness away and decides to stick it out, maybe finding another solution later. It's very good to see that it's not like Chester is being malicious, but just inconsiderate and careless towards his friends. He doesn't seem to have a mean bone in his body, and I don't think he's intentionally being mean here, and I think that's why this works. While eating with his parents, he pitches the idea of Timmyos, which I wouldn't buy even if it was buy 0, get 1 free. His parents bring up that because of the success of the Dimsdale Losers, and by that I really mean Chester, the only competition left is actual Major League Baseball players, to which the Dimsdale Losers are going to take on the New York Bankies in the Bankies Stadium. Hey, even the big guys have to pay up if they want to use someone else's copyright, like what Nerf says. It's fair use or nothing. Now Chester, quote, systematically destroys the best team that money can buy, not my words, but the actual episode's phrasing, and you can see that the Bankies are very sad, crying, despite making about $3,000 a second. The Dimsdale Losers are wallowing in their success via the shadow of a perfect McBadbat.
Guys, cheer up. We're winning. Why the long faces?
You play every position.
We don't even get to play anymore.
I was born this way.
It's here where Timmy's had enough, and for good reason. The episode is still very lighthearted about it, but Timmy was thrown on the sidelines for a wish that he made, so of course he's gonna feel a certain type of way about it. And Chester's not gonna know about any of this going on. However, it adds to the legitimacy of Timmy's grievances when the entire team comes out as well. Whereas in the Unnatural, the Lemmings were more interested in winning than playing, here the Losers are more interested in playing than winning. It almost makes you wonder why there even is a team if Chester can both catch a ball right out of his sleeve, hit a ball that would blow up the ISS, and single-handedly destroy a Major League Baseball team. Like with the Unnatural, there is no visible coach, because if there was, and they were a competent coach, they would be scrambling together to build a team of Chesters. Timmy and Chester's argument gets to an all-time high, and Chester does the unthinkable.
I guess I'm not your friend anymore. Well, gotta go.
Chester signs practically a death wish as he goes up against the best team that money can buy. We'll see how that turns out after we finish up The Ghost and Molly McGee. If you remember early on, Scratch talked about his scare quotas, and as you see here, he's actually very slowly, ever so slightly getting behind on his scare quotas, which if you remember the very first episode, he was depicted as someone who, while sloppy, always made his quotas in the town of Brighton. Towards the last part of that episode, we'd see that the scare tracker that they used to see if the quotas are being met slightly went down for Brighton as soon as Molly and her family moved in. From the first episode to this one, this is actually the next major time the Ghost Council actually takes part, and I am still consistent in my curiosity to want to see more of them, especially the big guy. However, it's just a small tease as we get right back into the game to learn that Molly actually made it near neck and neck because she's terrible and would have never gotten this far without cheating, or at least practicing. Molly makes the tough call and decides not to cheat.
I want to happify Brighton, but I did all this to help the Lemmings believe in themselves. Well, now, it's time I believe in the Lemmings. So, no more cheating.
This was after she was told that there was a high possibility of them losing, which means that they will let down the town of Brighton, but more importantly, the Lemmings, who so far were completely okay, if not happy, with the fact that Molly was carrying them to victory. The belief was in Molly, which she does have a problem with, but she gambled their happiness on making them believe in themselves, and I think this was a great spot for her to die on the moral. She tried her hand at cheating, and it worked, but if she goes through with it, they're just gonna say it was all Molly. Now, one may bring up in this instance that it would go from being 100% Molly to 95% Molly, but that 5% is gonna matter, goddammit, because it's the difference between a team effort and a McGee effort. She pitches the ball, and of course Tammy hits it, but where will it go?
Don't worry, I got this.
No, the Lemmings got it.
Believe in yourself, believe in yourself.
Why is bad? I can't watch.
Believe in yourself, believe in yourself.
No, editor. We don't need the Sender Reaper for this. She's okay. Ugh. That's enough death in this show targeted towards kids. Libby makes the winning catch, which gives the team something tangible that they can say that they did, even if it took a lot of luck, a lot of cheating, and a broken tooth. That's why I enjoyed this episode so much. They never let you forget that the team was awful. It got way farther in the chain than they should have. Is that to say that they did it in a way that was morally right 100%? Of course not. However, being in this morally gray area is actually a lot closer to reality. Even a reality as fantasy-based as this one. It showed that Molly isn't okay with cheating, but is okay with taking certain means to make her friends happy, which differentiates her from some other protagonists who wouldn't give it a second look. She's definitely not like the anti-hero or like snarky or edgy by any means, but is a nicer variant of the archetype that Disney has been portraying in a lot of shows recently over the last decade. That is why I like the Ghost of Molly McGee, because I can say for certain that this is trying not to be like its predecessors.
You may have won today, McGee, but tomorrow you'll still be pathetic.
Oh, hey, that reminds me. I'll be right back. So, is that Tammy with a Y or an I?
And they tie up their loose ends. How could I hate this? Anywho, let's finish up Foulballed. Getting back to the Fairly Oddparents, we'd see the aftermath of Chester saying what he said. Now that Chester isn't Timmy's friend, the wish that Timmy's friend was the best baseball player ever is now voided, meaning that the McBadbats are back to normal. One tiny aspect that I really enjoy is that for a few seconds, Timmy is happy that Chester sinks again, presumably because it gives him an opportunity to play, something that he's been very vocal and consistent about for a while now, but thinks about someone other than him, seeing that he's going to sink in front of the world, but most importantly his father, the person that Chester has been vocal and consistent about making proud, and bringing respect to the family name. With no one the wiser, Chester gets ready to bat, and gets 3 strikes immediately, shocking the crowd who are behind him since he ruthlessly competed against those preschoolers and won, and also giving the New York Bankies enough confidence to get out of the dugout, stop crying, and actually play. I won't lie, as cathartic as this may come across to some of you that may feel like Chester was being somewhat within the realm of being a jerk, some of this stuff is kind of wild when you remember that these people are old enough to be his dad. Probably more than that.
I got it! I got it!
You know how some people would say that they would knowingly get into a fight that they believe they would lose just to get a punch in? That's how I feel about the situation here. The nerve of that ball doing that, and the nerve of this guy to laugh at Chester. Like, I would have swung on him right then and there. However, as Chester gets a taste of losing again, he's not only sad, but afraid to think of a world where he goes back to disappointing his dad again. Although the execution here is a bit shaky, Timmy basically explains that while he's no longer the best at baseball, he can go back to having fun with his friends being the worst at baseball. And maybe through that, he can bring a different kind of respect to the family name. A little confusing, but Timmy's got the spirit. I also found it hilarious that just because of the threats of Chester being bad again, his mailbox gets nuked again. This was back before Hartman and the team would just spam the episode with the same running gag because coming up with new jokes is hard. Despite Chester giving the team a sizable lead, the Bankies make it neck and neck, leading to the final swing. In a poetic ending, Timmy is the one who makes the game-winning catch, giving them the big play of the game, having the Dimsdale losers beat the New York Bankies. Everyone celebrates as although it seemed obvious at who's gonna win at first, it became close and then a blowout at the very end. Although the New York Bankies are upset, Chester, who if you recall got hit on the head with a baseball, trips into the baseball bats, which destroys the rest of the team, which if you recall, makes about 3K a second. It's actually one of the funniest scenes within the episode in my opinion, just because of the fact that the umpire is still in game mode, telling each of them that they're out.
I just want to let you know how proud I am of you. In all my years in the majors, I never knocked out an entire baseball team that fast.
Gee, thanks, Pop.
Here you go, son. Your own bag.
Awesome!
It's a heartwarming way to end that part of the episode with Chester's father being very accepting of him. Chester's father, despite having to hide his face in shame, has shown himself to be rather optimistic, which explains why in Chester-centric episodes he can come across as very selfless. It's actually pretty logical and natural. I never thought I'd be having the feels for a paper bag though. The episode ends with Timmy saying that this is the last time that he's going to be using his magic for anyone other than him, and guess what? And then the opposite happens. Get it? It's rule of threes. He ends up wishing his father's pants back, to which his father would repay him by not wanting to buy Timmy O's despite having a coupon for it in his back pocket. Although The Fairly OddParents is one of my favorite shows of all time, I would have to say that The Unnatural is a better episode than Foul Ball. Both were good episodes, but The Unnatural had really neat character dynamics. It had the edge of slightly building up the ghost quota, and I found Molly to be more endearing than Chester. This isn't to say that Foul Ball didn't have its pros. It was a lot more wholesome, it was wackier, which leans towards my personal bias, and we also built out Chester and his father's relationship, which is one that we didn't know much about until then. Let me know which episode you thought was better in the comments, and until then, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Alpha out.